You are just there to scream, hey, I fought for the black people for the wrong reason, lady. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, this video is going to be about Tyree Nichols, how people is trying to use the whole situation where he passed away by the hands, the fist of 5 cops in a very horrible way. I already made a video about that, and I see a lot of people trying to go on the news trying to advocate for him as if this seems to be part of white supremacy.
Can explain it a little bit better. Okay, so anti-blackness is baked into society here and in the US, and black people are not impervious to that. And so what people fail to realise...
So black people are anti-black?
Yep, this exactly. So let me explain it. I know it's very confusing. Nonsense. So let me explain it. Let me explain it, Piers. So what people fail to realise is that when black people have to contend with racism, they can end up internalising it. And that can result in low self-esteem, self-loathing, and rejection of one's community. And when you combine those feelings, which as we know are also referred to as unconscious bias, when you have those feelings and they are compounded by hierarchy and power, it can lead to an individual abusing said power and projecting their self-hate onto another. And this is why, in my opinion, why we see black and white police officers killing more black people than we do white. Reason why is because of racism, which includes internalised racism, Piers.
Right. I think that's complete nonsense.
You would, because you're a white man and you don't understand.
Exactly, I'm white, therefore my skin colour means I have...
Because you don't have the lived experience.
My skin colour means I have nothing to do with it. All right, well, let me go to a black man and see if he's allowed to have a view. Zuby, what's your view?
Yeah, well, it's like anti-black to their own community. I'm like, no, maybe that community is way more unique and toxic. Because the point in the video that everybody was calling out, the way the cops were talking when they beat the guy down, they sounded as if it was, I don't know, a bunch of gang people.
I know. I see y'all seeing his ass run.
You can't run on time. As soon as I took his ass to the ground.
So I like my leg, bro. I know I'm finna feel this shit.
Bro, my shit been hurting all day, but when I seen that boy running, bro, that motherfucker ain't sorry no more, bro. Yes, bro.
Bro.
That motherfucker over here.
That motherfucker high.
He high. He high as a mug. Hey, sit up, bro.
And everybody's like, yo, why are you talking like that? Why can't you just talk like a human being? And if you say that, certain people from certain black cultures like, this is how we speak, this is how we do, bada bing, bada bam, bada boom. I'm like, I don't mind if you speak like that. But usually when you speak like that, it's related to certain people being freaking aggressive. The way you speak, like a gangster. I don't care if it's in Africa, South America, Curacao, or USA, or UK. The way you look and act and bounce, that's just a danger that I can see. When somebody is like, no, you have to be this, we white people are better, you have to speak like me, bada bing, bada boom. I'm like, I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna be me, and I'm gonna work hard to be me. But we don't have that. You have this weird gangster culture. And I will never promote something that brings a negative stigma to the whole package.
Okay, so I agree with the first half of everything that was said there. I agree that the video was disgusting. I agree that this is an issue of training, and I agree that this is an issue of the human heart. I think that any attempt to put the blame on this in any way, shape, or form on racism or white supremacy or white people in general is absolutely ridiculous. I also think it's pretty degrading because this sort of idea stems from the notion that black people, black men, black women, that we do not have full agency and responsibility and therefore accountability for our actions and our words.
If you are justifying that whenever a black person react in a specific way, it's because an ancestor, something internal, or the spirit of my grandfather is coming on my shoulder and telling me whatever I have to do to represent, it's a stupid thing. And if I make a joke, people get so offended. Of course I'm gonna make a joke because it's nonsense. When I go forward, it's going forward for me. I'm not going forward for the black people, and I would like to have a bunch of people going forward for themselves as a black person, for only us to realize and unite, yo, we have the same privileges, we can do this together and have a purpose or enjoy whatever benefit we can have in society. But that is not something that is promoted anywhere.
We end up in these ridiculous situations where no matter the permutation, no matter what happens, even if there's not a single white person involved in the situation, in the Memphis police force, even the police chief is a black woman. The large percentage of the force is black, and people are still trying to lean on this white supremacy is the answer and the reason for everything. And honestly, it's lame. And as someone who's lived my entire life as a black male, certainly I've never been possessed by this sort of phantom of white supremacy that's made me want to attack anybody, let alone another black person. And I think that we need to put the blame and responsibility squarely on the individuals who were involved in this.
I completely agree.
And it's tragic that this young man died.
I completely agree. I mean, just to note some statistics about the Memphis Police Department, that 65% of Memphis population is black. 58% of the entire police force in Memphis is black. The police chief was a black woman, right? And so on and so on. So you take all that in totality, you think, well, okay, well, where is this institutionalized white supremacy coming from, given the institution is actually served predominantly by black people for a population that is predominantly black as well? So I don't get that point. The second point I make is this. I think there's a wider issue here. The demonization of the police in America, calling them all a bunch of vile racists, has led to many older, experienced, good police officers who are not vile racists quitting the force all over the country. And as a result, in Memphis, for example, they had a massive reduction, 20% between 2011 and 2017 of police officers. 20% went from the force. And so to try and restore the numbers, they made it easier to become a police officer. They reduced the restrictions, reduced the qualifications. 2 of the 5 officers involved in killing this poor young man went through that process in that period of not being required to have the same sort of qualifications that they used to join the Memphis Police Department. So you have a bunch of people being brought in who are poorly trained, who are not qualified to do the job, who end up committing this kind of crime. That has nothing to do with racism or white supremacy. That has everything to do, I think, with perhaps an over-demonized force in general, with a lot of bad apples in it, but over-demonized force leading to many people quitting and being replaced with people just not up to the job.
And I have called this out. If you let people join in an army, in fire department, as a doctor, police, without the necessary skills, what the heck? I don't want somebody that had a gang membership, you used to talk like a gangster or whatever, and when it's going to operate me, okay, yo man, what's up, bro? We're gonna do. I can't even talk black. I don't like when people tell me, oh, you speak like a gated black person. What do you mean with that? Oh, you don't actually look black. What do you mean with that? Oh, you're from Curacao or a third world country. You're not like us. What do you mean with that?
I think it's, well, everything that you said I don't disagree with. I think it's not about conflating the two things. It's just about presenting a different perspective, an alternative perspective that should be considered, because internal racism is a real thing, so therefore it should be considered.
You just heard a black man, in a very considered way, say that basically you're talking nonsense. The idea that you
I'll ask that. So Zubi, do you believe that internal racism is nonsense? Do you believe that black people cannot internalize racism? Do you believe that?
I don't believe that it's completely impossible.
Okay.
I don't think it's impossible for
I
don't think it's impossible for a person of any race or ethnicity to harbor hatred or animosity towards people who may look like them or share some things in common. What I completely disagree with is the idea that in every single one of these situations, that no matter what happens, we just jump to white supremacy is the problem. We've seen this happen many, many times.
And I agree with you.
And I think one of the biggest issues with it is, I think one of the biggest issues as well is it's actually a distraction from a very important conversation, which Piers was leaning into there, which is that when it comes to the police in the USA and also in other countries, there's clearly an issue of character, qualifications,
and prejudice.
Training. I don't know exactly. Yeah, and
prejudice is the foundation for all forms of discrimination, including sexism, misogyny, racism, and the list goes on. So if you have not dealt with your prejudice within an institution, it will manifest in racism. That's a fact. That's a fact.
You're talking over.
That's a fact.
I'm making a good point. But secondly, you're bringing in prejudice, bigotry, racism, none of which had anything to do with this particular incident.
What are you talking about? I just explained to you internal racism, which is based off of prejudice.
There's a lot of distraction going on over here. I'm like, they're strawmanning the whole conversation. Then you start defending something that doesn't even exist. But by defending something that they just speak out like a special person, suddenly you don't even talk about the point, and you give them a reason to defend something, and people are like, what? Well, I don't understand the point clearly, but it's white supremacist, so hey man, I'm gonna believe it anyway. ooh, I don't like watermelon. Oh, that's because of white supremacy. Well, actually, back in the day, I like it a lot because, oh my God, that's racism. What do you mean? It's like everything is a problem.
Okay, okay, even following on from that point, I'd also say this is mind reading as well. So even trying to bring racism into this conversation, let's say these guys did not have guns and badges. Let's say this was just a group of random thugs, 5 black men beating up another black man. Even in that situation, even outside the police force, I've still seen situations where people try to blame this somehow on this specter of white supremacy. And as I've said, frankly, it's embarrassing.
And
as a black person, I have just as much agency and accountability. Okay.
But the truth is, even the people claiming this is about racism and white supremacy, they don't believe it. Because if they did believe that, they'd be out on the streets saying it. And they're not.
They are saying it. They are saying it because they do believe it.
But they're not protesting in the same way because in their heart they know it's not racism.
Okay, so I agree with you in that. I've always said that. I don't subscribe to any type of hypocrisy, right? So if white people are going to kill black people, we should be outraged. If black people kill black people, we should be outraged. So therefore, there are many things that Sabi have said that I agree with. There are many things that you have said that I agree with. But what I'm also trying to say is that firstly, this is about abuse of power and a disregard of life. Individuals should have should make sure that they are accountable for.
Well, we can all agree on that.
That is clear. But we also need to take into account that black people internalize racism and they can perpetuate that racism within institutions. That is a fact.
Yeah, I'll tell you what is a fact. This was 5 black police officers killing a black man, not because of racism and white supremacy or because anything a white person had done, but because they actually didn't know how to do their jobs. It got completely out of control. They behaved like a mob, a frenzied mob,
just like
and they completely lost control.
And that's the only thing I wanted to call out in this feature. Special people thinking they're gangster, seeing racism everywhere when a black person, 5, beat one without a gun, laughing about it at the end, blah 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 blah, like a gangster beating another gang member. No, that's stupid. Because when I say a black kid beating another black kid, I don't think there's anything in his head like, oh my God, I need to be like the white people. He just wants to be better. He just wants to impress a gang member. He wants to impress a lady or whatever. Or they wanna, I don't know, just fight for the fight. But the fact that they beat him on the floor, so gangster. The first thing that you want to say is white supremacy. That's stupid. Stupid. You are just there to scream, hey, I fought for the black people for the wrong reason, lady. Anyway, man, let me know what you think, because that's one thing that I really do not enjoy watching, because I know there's a bunch of black people looking at that be like, yeah, let's go 50 Cent, G-Unit. Don't believe me? Go watch all the interview of the most famous gangster artists in the world that have been in gangs. That will tell you that has nothing to do with black people. Those are